on stage.
Good afternoon. Define Asian beauty in no more than 8 words. So here are some examples. From tests, for example, we have skin fairness, graceful lines, refinement, defined colors. Or we have from Mamoru, Mount Fuji reflected on the lake. Good one, right? Or here we have one from Debbie who says it's about natural exudes from within, delicate, dashing, enduring. And a last one here from Sonia who says Asian beauty is inner strength that shines as natural radiance. I think these are all very, very nice descriptions, but none of them has won the prize. The prize will be given at the end of this session that we have on Asian beauty. And we have a very, very exciting panel here. 2 people from Unilever and also one of my colleagues from ACI. We get started with B.V. Pradeep, who's the VP Consumer and Market Insight for Unilever. Pradeep. All right, thank you very much. We also have with us Rohit Java, who's the Senior VP of Global Marketing and Operations, Unilever. And finally, Kishan Golian, my colleague at ACI, he's a Senior Assistant Director in Project Management. All right, so this is 4 ugly guys talking about Asian beauty. Pradeep, how did this all start? This project that we did together at ACI, together with you at Unilever.
I think it's an interesting beginning. We have been associated with ACI even before ACI was created. From 2010, we have been working with EDB and with Burn, which happened in 2012 March. So since then, it's been a journey which has been excellent. One of the reasons why we want to work with ACI, wanted to work with ACI, is the fact that you get a lot of commercial research which tells you what to do, what's the in thing now, and what should be done as an action tomorrow. But if you are actually looking at, you're thinking there must be something more substantial in most of the insight work which you do across consumers. And if you're looking at something more fundamental, if you're looking at something which has a fundamental academic rigor behind it in terms of thinking or bringing about a paradigm shift, where will that come from? And that's one of the reasons why we said that maybe it's a great opportunity for us to look at a long-term partnership with ACI and try to build that body of knowledge.
And we've done a couple of projects by now and it's still ongoing. But the major one was this first project on Asian beauty, on understanding what is Asian beauty. And what were sort of the questions coming from your side, from you?
I think just as Bernd was reading out the definitions of beauty, a thought that passed my mind was next time I should probably not do the study but come to this conference and pass a slip around and collect all the definitions.
But that costs the same amount of money actually.
He is always looking at the business angle.
Absolutely.
You should be generous, Bernd.
Oh yeah.
Now coming more seriously to this understanding of Asian beauty, I think we'll see what the definitions are and what will be the price winner. But the key thing is, the question was is there a concept of Asian beauty? And if so, is it distinct and different from the concept of Western beauty? And what is it? And is that one or is it many? That was one of the key things we wanted to look at. And as we started looking at it, I think we realized that there are many concepts of Asian beauties rather than Asian beauty. And then you also realize that it is not just about a particular portrayal. There are some things which are common. For example, the whole thing of fairness is across various countries in different shades. But when you look at the whole thing, again, it filters through a very strong cultural lens. And the local nuances and how it manifests are so very specific. You need to get to the detail in order to be able to capture it fully. So I would say there is no one Asian beauty, there are many Asian beauties.
And there are multiple dimensions. I mean, we just had it now when I read these 4 or 5 responses out. Some beauty seems to relate to physical appearance. right? But then there was also some comments done in a metaphorical way that beauty is not just about physical appearance, it's also about something, inside.
Right.
And that inside can be some naturalness inside, or it can also be a psychological characteristic. The last one I read out was about inner strength,
Yeah.
right? So these are the various dimensions of beauty, and I guess the question is which ones are the most relevant in an Asian setting.
Absolutely, I think because it makes it so interesting in terms of looking at beauty, and the word, when you say beauty is in the eye of the beholder, it's probably also in the mind of the beholder. So I think it's more psychological as well as compared to a physical form, and that makes it extremely interesting. And many of you are aware of the Dove's concept. Our brand Dove has this concept of real beauty, which is a quite an empowering concept for most women across the world. It's not a physical form; it's a mind of self-confidence and being confident of what you are, rather than trying to get to a size 8 or a certain look. So there are various things about beauty beyond the physical form, yeah.
And it's not only about beauty in people. One can also learn by understanding how the concept of beauty is used in other contexts. In fact, one of the examples was a metaphor, right? Mount Fuji reflected in the lake, right? Which is, of course, a statement about a landscape, but can also be transferred in an interesting way to human beauty.
Yeah, that's very true, because I travel across and meet consumers across various countries, and if I were to quote from my own consumer connect experience, for example, I was in Japan meeting some consumers, women, and then and they were talking about, and when asked about beauty, why do you want to dress up and make yourself beautiful, look beautiful? And they said it's for other women. That was a surprising comment. I thought it would, in a typical, some of the other countries for the men to attract or impress or whatever, and then that makes it look very different as to why would you do that. And then anyway, she said, anyway, men are getting extinct. So that was an interesting comment, and telling that to a man made it even more interesting, I suppose. And then when I went to South Africa and I was talking to this really beautiful black African, and she had some lovely glowing skin, and then we were talking about it, and then suddenly, what's going on in my mind was, do you think she would be looking at some skincare products and other things? And then in the course of discussion, I realized that there's so much of cultural attachments to skin color, and she was telling me that her concept was, if you are brown, you're probably impure, and I said, oh, what's that? And then she said, because she regarded herself as being a pure African race, and so consequently the pride in the pristine beauty of Africa, this thing was so strong. I was very impressed in the sense, we look at things differently when you're looking at it from let's say a South Asian perspective, where we have brands, we have for Fair and Lovely, where people want to look a little skin which is a little more lightened than probably what it should be.
And I mean, beauty is also very personal, it's very subjective. In fact, the project started at the end of this famous campaign that you had done, that Unilever had done on Dove, the campaign for real beauty,
correct,
which very, very much makes that point, that there are various influences, cultural influences, but also influenced by the beauty industry, right? In terms of shaping our perceptions of beauty.
Yeah, absolutely right. I think, yeah.
But the focus was really on Asian beauty. So, can you share with us some of the key findings? I know a lot of it is, of course, it's a project for Unilever, so a lot of it is proprietary. But at a broad scale, can you share some of the key findings?
I think just to give you one of the things, as you know, this the proprietary piece of work, but just to give you some thinking about the kind of thing which one can get. And for example, if you look at Thailand, and many of you know that the concept of Thailand is one of the markets which is advanced in terms of fashion, modernity, and it's probably following very closely on the Korean fashion trends, etc., beauty trends. And you also see, if you go there and see the amount of plastic surgery units who probably craft you in any shape, size which you want. It's more than any other Southeast Asian country. And you then start thinking about why is that so? Why is it so much more prevalent than there? And you start looking at around the cultural aspects of it. And one of the things you discover is, it's there in the literature, if you look at it, they think face is their fortune. So They just want to get the face which they want. And I was talking to one consumer, she had gone through some 6 surgeries because her nose didn't look right. I mean, she had this photograph and she was showing me that this nose doesn't look, I thought she was beautiful. And she showed me one photograph and said that the nose is not right in this and it is perfect in this. And I couldn't tell the difference. And I was thinking, what's happening in her mind? Because why is she thinking she's not beautiful in this? So it's that kind of a thing. So there is, I can make what I think I want to be kind of a thing. As compared to other countries in Southeast Asia where let's say Indonesia, where it's a much more reserved traditional mindset where you look at everything which you get is from God and hence it needs to be a little more preserved rather than reshaped by mankind or womankind in this case. So you are a little more selective in what you do to yourself, and so the kinds of things that appeal to them are quite different. So it changes. It changes by there's an interaction between the culture and the perceptions of beauty. It's almost embedded within that.
And I guess I'm not telling anybody a secret that we looked at various cultures as part of the project. We talked to consumers in various cultures, in various societies, we talked to experts and so on. The usual market research techniques that one would be using in that case. You mentioned the plastic surgery. I want to bring in Rohit into the conversation.
I've not had any plastic surgery.
Okay, but maybe you may have it in the future because it's becoming the standard in certain Asian markets, isn't it? Like in Korea, it's entirely acceptable. It's not something to be embarrassed about. It is seen as a superior form of dealing with the idea of beauty. So should Unilever get into the plastic surgery business? What do you think?
I don't think we have the competency to do that. So we have a lot of opportunity with what we sell today. So that could be well in the future.
Okay, but can you learn something from that development? A lot of women nowadays believe that beauty doesn't have to be natural, it can be engineered.
What I'd like to do here is to essentially pick on the notion of the engineering beauty, which is the Thai version of beauty. And you talked about Indonesia, which is a natural, God-given concept of beauty. So I want to talk about how we brought this into action. Because when you look at a company of our scale and size, with the global scale being locally relevant becomes really critical. And you talked about so many differences between different cultures. So how do you sensibly do that without sort of completely losing your mind? So one of the things that we have done is to essentially make sure some common themes such as beauty is sometimes about fairness, beauty is sometimes about elegance, fluidity, but also very specific cultural cues in certainly very important means of communication. And one of the examples I'd like to show the team here, which is a result of one of the insights that came from the work that you've done,
the ACI study.
ACI has done, was on the Indonesian notion of beauty, and we have a very old, very successful variant for our Sunsilk hair product called Sunsilk Black. It's been really celebrated in Indonesian in all its sort of values. So I'll show you an ad which will basically show shortly how we've kept the brand values intact, so they're the same brand values you'll have in other countries. We've been very clear about the common themes of beauty, but we've also been extremely respectful of the Indonesian heritage, because that's how you start to connect with the hearts and minds of the consumer, because that's how she reacts and feels that it's for her. So let's see, I'll play you an ad for Sunsilk, 60 seconds, and we'll just talk a little bit about that after we finish.
Diwarnain gak ya rambutku? Rambut hitamku sudah menjadi bagian hidupku, semangatku, kekuatanku. Kilau hitamnya membangun kepercayaan diriku, melengkapiku, memberi kebanggaan. Rambut hitam berkilauku tak akan kuubah lainnya.
Sunsilk Black Shine dengan urang aring pearl kompleks untuk rambut sehat, kuat, hitam berkilau.
Sunsilk Black Shineku, rambut hitam berkilauku, kebanggaanku.
Sunsilk Black Shine bersama Jamal Hamadi, jadikan rambutmu hitam berkilau.
So here we've tried to, in this, communicate. There's a society of Indonesia, there's a conflict in modernity, traditionalism. So we've tried to balance that in this communication. We have celebrated the Indonesian heritage and values. You've seen the respect given to elders. We've celebrated the notion of beauty, which is God-given and still sort of measured and moderated. We've also celebrated the confidence, which is actually a Sunsilk proposition, and the shine of long black hair. And you must have noticed the ads been shot in Borobudur, which is a place that the Indonesian culture is very proud of. So it's got all of these values, so it's well within the framework of what the brand is. It is very all about beauty. You see the hair shots, they're all pretty much on the sort of code of beauty. Yet, it is very much Indonesian in its communication. And as it happens, the team who's done the work is right here. So there's Sandeep, Loic, Namrata. So really good work, and it's done very successfully in the market.
No, it's beautiful work, and it's very, very much aligned, of course, with what we have done in the project.
Indeed.
And then coming out of that. Now, there is the external implementation part in an ad, for example.
Yes.
But there's also the internal element, how you implement this within the business.
Yes.
And how you could make this sustainable. Could you speak to that issue as well, please?
So as we try and grow, beauty care is a really exciting market. In Asia particularly, it's growing, it's premiumizing. So we want to also play a part, and we've had strong portfolio in the past. But going forwards, in trying to translate the better insight into real business, we see 4 big building blocks. There's the building block of creating shared engagement with the top marketers, and we've done that. We were involved in that. The second building block essentially is to create a community of practitioners. So we have an internal Facebook type platform in which people share the tips and tricks and how to sort of be good at it and best practices. The other building block, very important, is advocacy ecosystem, because beauty is really all about recommendation and word of mouth. It's not a business that's like some other businesses, a lot to do with huge budgets above the line. It's to do with detailing, it's about craft, it's about detail in the way products are designed, and also it's all about consultancy. So we have lots of work we do with PR, with external beauty bloggers, beauty editors, in-store execution, having beauty advisors, and so on and so forth. So building a strong advocacy ecosystem. And the fourth building block essentially is to have a business model that is aligned to what the beauty business is. So it means the portfolio and the assortment we sell, the route to market, and therefore channel focus on the margins we give, how we invest, which is much more below the line and less above the line, and also finally to do with supply chain, which is very different. It's sort of small values, lots of churn, and lots of forward and backwards in terms of the supply chain logistics. So it's a complex business that requires its own solution, end to end. So there are 4 building blocks, like I said. So it's really about shared engagement, it's about community of practitioners, advocacy, and business model.
Okay, you also work with global brand and marketing communications, right?
Right.
And I remember last year at this conference, we had a colleague of yours being here saying, he believes in complete localization. That was one bit. So how can you bring in local nuances into global communications, and how do you resolve this tension that always exists in?
I think this is a really good question. It's really important. I think one of the biggest tensions or trade-offs that people in global marketing have to face is, how do you not become one size fits all and therefore stupid because it's not going to work? And how do you become mindlessly local and it's not going to work either? So it's really about trying to find the sweet spot, and it's not really very easy to do, but it requires a lot of sort of understanding and distinction. And I quote an example. Our CEO talks. He says that the difference between a monkey and a human being is the 1% DNA. The rest is the same. So it's really about finding the 1% sophistication, understanding the consumer better. And I want to give you an example to bring this point to bear, which is an example of Vaseline, which is a very big global brand. And I want to show you a press ad first, then I'll comment on it. Okay, exactly. So if you see, Vaseline is all about healing. It's a tradition, it's a very old equity. We have the same execution across the world. The packs, the products do, of course, customize to different markets. But if you see the 3 examples here, the healing, which is the proposition we've expressed in Thailand, which is your bottom left, as deep moisturization, because we believe, if we know from understanding that healing, the deep moisturization is how consumers get it. And secondly, as you can see, we've been culturally very sensitive. So top is the execution in the US, all the way down to Indonesia. So we've just adjusted without losing the brand codes, the brand values, the colors, the icons, and made sure it's relevant to each market. So that's this game of being globally scaled and locally relevant, which we constantly need to play.
This is a very, very nice example, I think. We'll take questions from the audience in a moment. I also want to bring in Kishan, who will be telling us a little bit about the sort of process that we are using at ACI when we do projects like this. But first I'd like to have some questions from the audience about beauty to our...
I was talking to Bern during our lunch. I think one of the observations we have is technology keeps changing, but the needs are the same internally. How it gets serviced changes. So in fact, if you look at social media, one of the things, there are two things which go on very strongly in terms of photographs on social media is your own photograph of how beautiful you are and how you look. And the other one is of course pictures of food and dishes which you eat. I think I've almost seen that when you go to a restaurant, people are taking photographs to load it onto the Facebook first before they eat it. So these are the two things there. But the thing about technology is that it empowers people to present themselves in whichever way we want. And then this whole access that they have is so empowering. So you get to know what people think is beautiful.
Yes, the lady in front, please.
We are increasingly using this as a process to try and get breakthrough solutions around design, what consumers like, so putting people together. So on a day's notice, you can put the experts on beauty editors, beauty bloggers, consumers, professionals, people who run salons, stylists, marketeers, research people, put them all in a room today and sort of give them a blues brief. You start to get really good stuff. So I think, but the co-creation is frankly in my view not a specific beauty thing, but it should work generally for all consumer solutions, but certainly for beauty I believe, and I've seen some in action, can work. So increasingly high role of beauty, co-creation in creating really good solutions, because they tend to be also very unique and specific. Sometimes the segments are quite small, so we're talking to a very specific consumer segment, and it's not easy then to talk at a mass data and start to say, okay, on the average, she wants this. But we're looking at very specific age, lifestyle, and products to suit that particular consumer. You do need to talk to them at a more intimate level and co-create the solutions than sort of throw things on a broadcast basis.
Okay.
Based basis. So, like in this case, Sunsilk Black is a very traditional, strong, deeply rooted variant for Indonesia. It's I think an Indonesian model, but it really depends horses for courses. There's no classic formula. Sometimes we take a celebrity who's globally valid and known, then you would want to use that globally. Sometimes campaigns do travel without the need to change casting, but very often campaigns do need to get customized. So it really depends on the marketing challenge and job that we have to do.
Okay, I'd like to bring in, we've been talking about this a lot.
Yeah, I think the last word, or not even the first word probably has not been said on that, so it's very difficult for me to say definitely what the answer to your question is. But basically I think that's a thing which is a rapidly changing area. The only way you can keep in touch is stay in touch with consumers and see what's happening, how it's shaping, and then what you could do to shape it in the right direction. Because I was in Indonesia in one of the stores, and then there was this aisle of beauty products for women, and opposite there was a complete shelf of for men's grooming products. There are these 18-year-old 3 boys who came in. I was just observing because the sales hostess was on the other side, and she was trying to help with the women, and the women seemed to know everything, so they were not even talking to her. And suddenly these 3 boys are trying to figure out what the hell is this, so reading the back of the bag and trying to consult and all that. So I was just observing what's happening, and then after about 5 minutes, that lady who was on the other side could not hold herself, so she ran across and said, "Can I help?" And these boys were completely shaken because they were very embarrassed that they couldn't figure out what to buy. But that's the state of understanding, which is where the male grooming is today in terms of, it's quite an uncharted territory, so it's a huge opportunity as well, and also lots of question marks.
If I may share a personal anecdote to give you, and I'm a consumer in this case directly. So I was in the Philippines last week, and I went to a store, department store, a drug store, and we had a Pond's counter, which is a great beautiful brand, and we had this lady who was essentially the Pond's counter meant for mainly women audience, but I sat in just to understand, okay, are you doing a good job with beauty advisors? And let me sort of go through that. So she took an iPad application, she went through my skin, tested it around wrinkles, around spots, what color, and around moisturizing or dryness. And then she gave me a sort of score around those 4 factors and said my skin was extremely dry and I needed a very strong anti-aging solution. And then she gave me a 4, so I was happy to buy just one product, which is pretty expensive. Good, I'm sure, great, but high cost. And then she said, no, but you need to also have a facial cleanser, and then you must apply, the serum, and then you must apply day cream and a night cream, and then you want to protect with a BB cream. So I ended up looking at a bill of a lot of money, so 5 product regime. So that's really how I felt that the lady was doing was fantastic, and she was really on the ball. She also gets an incentive to sell and detail. So this is the sort of business it is. It's a very different business and requires, and as a male, I thought that I would have at least bought one product for a fight.
I was a little bit too early with my judgment of saying that 4 ugly guys will be talking about Asian beauty. There are only 3. And I leave it up to you to judge. Alright, Kishan, I'd like to bring you into the conversation. Kishan was the project manager on the ACI project that we've done on Asian beauty with Unilever. Maybe you can give the audience a sense of how these projects work, how we approach those sorts of projects.
So, like Bernd mentioned briefly, we do use the usual techniques of talking to consumers and talking to experts. What I would like to add is we also have a set of proprietary tools and frameworks which we use in our projects. The one for the beauty project, which was highly relevant to it, is called the concept exploration method. And Bernd, you've written about it in your book as well. It's about deconstructing a concept down to its basics and then looking at which of those basic components are applicable or relevant to different countries, and then mapping different countries on those ideas. What this does is it allows you to take a step back and look at your industry, the market that you're in, from a different point of view. So that's one.
And I think that's what you wanted us to do, Pradeep, right? This notion of looking at it from a different point of view, in a more radical way. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that's right. I think one of the things is it's a bit like if you give the iceberg example, you look at the top of the iceberg, you get something, you think it's only that much tall, and then you just peep inside, you see there's a whole lot of stuff below the water surface which actually explains why the top portion is floating up there. So I think what the ACI projects we are looking for is a much more fundamental understanding of how consumers' motivation, thinking and behavioral frameworks work, and then once you have the framework, then you can see how each country on that framework is turning out to be different, and that helps us to think global and act locally in terms of specific initiatives.
And you mentioned, Kishan, the concept exploration tool. We have a few other tools as well, which we've not used in the Unilever project per se, but which we're also using with other clients. Maybe you can just give us a quick sense on
Correct. So in the forthcoming projects, we're looking at a particular tool which is called the Asia Lifestyle Tool. And what you do in that is you look at the values of Asian consumers, what are relevant to them. We also look at the trends, the ongoing trends in the market, and you also look at the situation of the consumer. They might behave differently when they are traveling versus when they are in their office. So you look at these 3 concepts and you combine them in order to come up with maybe a segmentation or a better understanding of the consumers in different situations. For some of the upcoming projects, we are also looking to go into 3D printing. Bernd, you mentioned some time back that in Columbia University, there was a talk that mentioned that 3D printing is changing the way that even professional services are provided. It's becoming more than just giving you a deck of insights. It's taking it to the next step where you help to realize your ideas as well.
Into new product development, for example. Yeah. Right, great. Well, talking about this notion of new product development, the beauty business has always beautiful communications. But there's also the innovation aspect that you have in your business. When you think about it for a moment in terms of the mix of the two, Do you think currently the industry is more about communications, or is it more about innovations in a real product sense, in terms of product ingredients and new formulas and so on? Where is the action?
No, look at that. So innovation and communication, so it's an end-to-end marketing system. Innovation is really, really critical. It's a business with high churn. There's lots of trends which come and go, and therefore having new news constantly is really important. Invention is really critical. Discovery, science, and as you just mentioned, the whole notion of craft, design, and detail. If you look at any premium product and any beauty product, it starts to be beautiful by itself. At whatever price point we sell that. So I think the innovation piece is extremely, extremely critical.
Pradeep, you'd like to comment on this as well?
Yeah.
And if you have another question, please make up your question, because we're running out of time soon. But Pradeep first.
Yeah, I think just to build on what Rohit said, I think innovation is going to be and will always be something which will stay, but the form of innovation will keep changing, because that's the way you deliver the experience to consumers. And Bern has done a lot of work in the area of experiential marketing, and one of the things we were talking about was this whole thing of products are a means to deliver an experience, and now the way innovation and communication is coming together is they're all merging together. The experience, the communication itself could be the experience. So I mean, it becomes very difficult to separate out what's the innovation part and what's the communication part when you go further on across various categories.
Even with virtual products, you shared a beautiful example with me over lunch, saying, Bernd, you wrote about experiential marketing, but the way the experience is being delivered is changing all the time. And you gave I think, a very nice example, if you want to share.
Yeah, I was telling him, I think till about 5 years ago, I was thinking this virtual reality is complete bullshit, because somebody is saying all this stuff, nothing, because you can't touch and feel, there is nothing, it's an image which comes through, what's the big deal? And 5 years ago when I was in the UK, one day I walked into, my daughter came and asked me, she was 10, and she asked me, what's your credit card number? I said, we were asking for 5 pounds, 10 pounds, now you want my credit card number, what's happening? So she said, there is this website where you can go and register, and it's something to do with Barbie stuff, something, and then each of her friends can register, and there is a icon of a girl created for her with her name, and she can join with friends and they go shopping and do all these activities. So it's literally, they are living their lives out there. So I said, how much is it? 5 pounds. Okay, she registered and this thing. 2 days later she came back and asked me, I need another 5 pounds. I said, this is getting too much. Now why is this required? She said, yeah, I got this. With the registration I got a house and I got a wardrobe, but I just bought one pair of dresses. Look at my friends, they have 15 and they haven't bought it. I haven't bought anything because my bank balance is 0. You need to give me 5 pounds. And I said, oh my God, this is getting too much now. I don't know what I got sucked into here. So I said 5 pounds is fine. And then I was observing what she's doing. And then she went out and it was a shopping mall and she could go and choose. And they were talking to each other, oh, buy the red dress, it is so nice. And then don't buy the pink one, etc. And I was looking at her eyes. I mean, it was really as if she went shopping. We used to go to shop in Marks and Spencer, other places, etc. and bought her real dresses. She wasn't as happy as she was doing this. I said, what a world this is going to be, because we are looking at the image and feeling so happy about it. And so that made me think about, that's what I was sharing, and then from that day onwards it's changed. I think it's all about experience. When you use a toilet soap, you use it's the experience which you want. And neuroscientists will tell you, you can simulate that experience without the product, if they know which part of your brain has to be tickled. So I think it's getting to a very weird place, this world, but anyway, it's interesting. Let's enjoy the ride.
And you are in that experience business after all, aren't you?
Well, it is. Like I was mentioning the example that of the detailing or the beauty advice, that's an experience. So I was not just buying the jar of Pond's cream, but I was buying the experience. And indeed, going forwards, products also into services is another growth opportunity. So to not plastic surgery, but certainly services is a viable next step for any beauty company.
Okay, very good. We need to give the gift to the winner, okay, of our